faking on the real? Why you faking on the real?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome on into Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speakers. Shay Pepler Cornett and Jordan Cornett hanging out with you one more day, getting to fill in for the big guns.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Yeah, they are definitely the big guns.
Yes.
Excited to be back. We had a good Thanksgiving, didn't we?
We did. We had a good Thanksgiving. I'm still full, although somehow I managed to eat breakfast.
I think Mike Golick Jr. said it best. He feels like he's at max capacity.
Yeah.
I think we both were at max capacity after all the food and indulging we did yesterday, but it's back to business today.
It is. It's back to business. So we had a Thanksgiving where we had two meals. We had one during the first game. We had another meal during the second game. And we went to bed early because we had to be back here.
Yeah.
And we also went to bed early because there was no night game. Because Steelers and Ravens has been postponed until Sunday. Well, now that game is even looking like it might not be played and is in jeopardy because we found out last night that Lamar Jackson has tested positive for COVID-19. He is the reigning MVP, arguably the biggest name in the NFL so far to test positive for COVID-19. And this now creates a scenario where there is an outbreak amongst these Ravens players, personnel, staff members. And we don't know what's going to happen come Sunday. We will have much more on this coming up later because Jeremy Fowler is going to join us later this hour, and we'll dive a little bit more into what this means for Sunday's game, what it means for the Ravens going forward because they are on a short week after that. So we'll get more into that later on. Let's start with the games, though, that we saw last night. And most notably, let's start with the Cowboys and the Washington football team. This was played in Dallas. And if you listened to the show at all yesterday, my husband was big on the Cowboys. Didn't go their way. Now, there were a few reasons.
Put all the chips in on the Cowboys.
All the chips in on the Cowboys. They ended up losing 41-16. Washington football team now alone in first place in the NFC East as they surpass the Philadelphia Eagles, and they are up by a half a game. So there were some injuries. Also, the Cowboys playing with a very heavy heart. Marcus Paul, their strength and conditioning coach, one of them at least, passed away the day before. There was a medical emergency at the facility. We know all about this. Then they have dealt with some injuries to their offensive line all season, and then it happened again yesterday, rarely quickly. They lost their right tackle, Zach Martin, and their left tackle, Cam Irving, within 4 plays of each other on the very first drive of the game.
Offensive possession for the Cowboys of the game, Shay. And look, all I can do at this point is make excuses after the confidence I had in these Cowboys. And to me, it's simple. I said yesterday, Cowboys win this game on the backs of their offensive line. The offensive line holds these guys up front at bay from a Washington team. That is very tough up front. They're able to activate a run game and get going with Ezekiel Elliott. That never happened because when Irving goes down and Martin goes down, the game plan is then thrown out the door. And so what I thought would be the key to success became the story of more bad luck for a Cowboys team and just more attrition for what already was going to be that coming in.
Yeah.
And this is not analysis. This is not hot takey. They lost a part of their family coming into that game. And I don't know how important that game, which was of massive importance, feels to all those players when the loss of life and some of the guys seeing Marcus collapse in their facilities and then ultimately not survive. Look, like that has an impact. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to make this about that. It's way deeper than that with what's going on with the Cowboys. And when I toss it back to you, I'll then get back into that side of it. But I just wonder how much of the focus and the mental fatigue set in the second half of what they were dealing with. I really do. And It's not a cop-out. I just really do.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And obviously no one can relate to what they're going through. Mike McCarthy even said yesterday, this is a real thing that my team is going to have to overcome. It's real adversity. Again, you're listening to Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Shay Cornett, Jordan Cornett, filling in for them yet again today. In case you don't know who we are married.
We are.
We also work on, we don't fill in. We actually do work here. We work on Sundays. We do game day on ESPN Radio.
1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Let's get the plug so we can get
I feel you.
Bring some of this massive audience over to our side. Look, Shay, the other part of this now getting to the field, the coaching decisions.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the coaching decisions. Probably the most glaring one was the fake punt. Okay. The fake punt. 4th and 10 at their own 24 with 12 minutes and 54 seconds
Start of the
left.
fourth quarter, essentially. I mean, this is the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Dallas trailed 20 to 16 at the time. If you saw the fake punt, I am sure, like the rest of us, at least like we were at home, what are you doing, Mike McCarthy?
Trailing by 4, game within reach,
Fourth
buried
and 10.
inside your own territory.
It made no sense. Here's Mike McCarthy's rationale.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a big play opportunity is the way you view it. There's certain things you look for tendency-wise on when and where, But it's obviously we didn't execute it, and as those things go, I mean, obviously it's ultimately my responsibility when, particularly a play like that doesn't work. But we're trying to generate a big play at that point in the game. Prior, the information that you look for going into it, it was a solid call.
Okay, so he defend. I mean, what's he going to say? That I should have never called that? Obviously, he's going to defend it. He says it's a solid call. But prior in the game to that, they tried to run some sort of similar play to a Philly special, and the Washington football team was ready for it. They were fully ready for the fake punt as well. You're not fooling anyone, and you're especially not fooling this Washington football team pass defense in any way, which, by the way, is number 1 in the National Football League. So the Cowboys end up looking foolish on both of these scenarios. And I think a lot of this, and I know you feel strongly about this too, is not on Andy Dalton. Look, Andy Dalton wasn't perfect by any means yesterday. By any means. But
he was looking like he was on his way in the first half. Andy Dalton played a good first half.
Yeah. So I'm not putting this on Andy Dalton. I'm putting this on the coaching staff and the decision-making. I'm putting this on Ezekiel Elliott, who had 32 yards rushing and a fumble. Another fumble, by the way. I'm putting it on CeeDee Lamb, who dropped a pass that you just simply cannot drop.
That's 6.
And
that's the touchdown. We're not talking about the first half. Another head scratcher play call from Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, on a 4th and 1, elects to not give the ball to your highly paid running back Ezekiel Elliott. I don't care what's going on with injuries with the offensive line. It's not 4th and 1, it's 4th and inches. And you elect for Andy Dalton to try to thread the needle on a short pass that's very covered by the defense that results in an incompletion and a turnover on downs. I mean, the Cowboys' defense surrendered 338 yards of offense. It's not like this was a benchmark performance for them, but they were continually put in these awful situations with Washington in this favorable field position deep inside Cowboys territory that resulted in 24 points. 24 points. That's a huge swing of momentum in a game where your defense is already a questionable defense that is tasked with an immense amount of bending that inevitably leads to breaking. And that was from decision-making from the sidelines and a lack of execution. You mentioned the CeeDee Lamb. Big stars on Dallas's team are still on the roster and healthy. Ezekiel Elliott fumbles in this game for the 6th time this season, the 5th one lost. I guess if you're going to glean positive, it's the first turnover from Ezekiel Elliott that didn't result in 6 points for the opposition.
Wow, that's
but it
great
resulted
news.
in a field goal.
That's great news.
Like, it's just these mistakes keep coming for a Cowboys team that has some talent still on the roster, and it feels like I should have known better. I should have known better, Shay, because Cowboys were favored.
Yes, see.
The Cowboys were in a position, and Andy Dalton has said this a few times in his presser. He talked about it in the second half. He was disappointed. It was all in front of them. He talked about coming into the game. It was all in front of him. It always feels like it's in front of these Cowboys, and they can't figure out a way to get it done, even if it feels like it's gift wrapped for them to get it done.
Yeah, and there'll be much more on this later on. I wasn't